I am Larriga, Gumbaynggirr, and introduce myself as Laurie John Kelly. I was born here at Bellingen Hospital back in 1938, on 11th of the 8th, 1938. I was a premature baby, and when I was born, I was 2 pounds, and they actually allowed Aboriginal people to be born, or Aboriginal babies to be born here at Bellingen Hospital with Dr Hewitt back in those days. He was a humanitarian person, and he was the only link that we had with the hospital because of the segregation in this area, in this North Coast area region. There was a lot of segregation. Like we had a hospital back at Bowraville, but we weren't allowed to use that hospital facilities. And Mum actually walked over the mountain with me for me to be born here in Bellingen. And that was going back a long, long way. And actually Dr Hewitt, that delivered me, he actually delivered the first set of quads in Australia at the Bellingen Hospital here. And he became famous for that, and famous for bringing me in the world too, I think. Just chuck that little bit in. The possibility that I was here until I was strong enough to be taken back home. And that was back over the mountain to Bowraville. A lot of the mums, when they came and stayed, they used to stay out near the old tip because there weren't no facilities in town like today, like motels or places where they could stay. So they came and set up camp out at the old tip because there's tins there available to make a little gunya or a place for the family to sleep in the wet. And there were a few families were living up there at the time. Jackie was a fine young fellow, full of energy. Jackie, and it goes on like that. I forget the words, but it was a song about an Aboriginal man back in those days, when there was a lot of segregation and where all Aboriginal men was recognised as Jackie when they was working for the farmers or people on the land and clearing the land. So they were all known as Jackies. And Jackie was a form of slavery for the white colonists. It was possibly a month that I was kept in hospital after my birth, before Mum was allowed to take me back home to Bowraville. And Bowraville was one of the most segregated Aboriginal communities outside of Moree in New South Wales. But back in those days, she had to walk from Bowraville, the women had to walk from Bowraville to Bellingen Hospital here because of they weren't allowed to use the ambulance service. And Bellingen Hospital was the only hospital that allowed the Aboriginal mothers to give birth to their children inside the hospital, because the other hospitals wouldn't allow that because of they was afraid of the catching disease off the Aboriginal women with the blood, the black blood bleeding, and they get caught on their hands or on their gowns, and they were frightened of getting disease off the Aboriginal people. There was a hospital at Bowraville, but we weren't allowed to enter that hospital. With some of the mums that was really close to birth, they was put on the veranda and laid on a mattress and gave birth there, but then they were sent home straight after birth. And the mattress and sheet that they was laying on was taken out the back to the furnace and burnt because there was the fear of the disease from the Aboriginal community. My mum was recognised as a clever woman back in those days because she could actually deliver babies for the Aboriginal mums when they had nowhere else to go. And the reason that was because they all knew about it. And like us back in those old days, we knew about these clever people who was able to do extraordinary things within the Aboriginal community. But now all that hasn't been passed on or not taught in Aboriginal communities today, and most the younger generation now has got all the facilities such as motels and hotels and where they're allowed in hospitals, they're allowed in restaurants, they're allowed in school. Like we weren't allowed in the school back in those days. We was at a segregated school where we was in all from kindergarten class to sixth class or to third class was what they taught from kindergarten to third class, and we finished third class, then you was put out to work. Now, when I was going to school, that was back in the early 40s, and it was called St. Mary's Convent at Bowraville, and it was a segregated school. They had a fence between the Aboriginal little one school, and it was just one classroom where all the black kids had to be piled into there. And they had a fence between them, between us and the European kids, so we weren't allowed to mix with the European kids because of that fear again from segregation with the diseases that the Aboriginal kids had. And the fear was that we weren't allowed to mix with them. The only day we mixed with them was on St. Patrick's Day, when St. Patrick's Sports Days was on, and Aboriginal kids were good sports kids. They used to win all the blue ribbons for St. Mary's Catholic Church at Bowraville. And that made them pretty happy on that day because they used to display all the blue ribbons that we used to win. It was good because I was young and I was happy to win some races and that, you know, on those days. But all the other days when at that school we weren't allowed to go home to the mission down the road for lunch. We had to cook our own lunch. We had a little shed on the side of the school, just up from the school, and some tables put out along the fence with stools for us to sit down and have our lunch there. But we had to, before we went into the classroom, there was certain kids was picked out to cook the soup and with barley and rice and the vegetables. They used to bring vegetables up to the Aboriginal school for us. They had grubs and that in them. We had to get all the grubs out, and the cabbage and cauliflower and stuff like that, and carrots. But then we'd get the bones. They used to bring the bones from the slaughterhouse up for us, and we'd cut all the meat off the bones and that, and put it in for a soup and big pot. We used to make a big pot of soup every day for lunch, the Aboriginal kids. And that's because we weren't allowed to go home to the mission for lunch because they didn't want us to learn our Aboriginal language. We weren't allowed to speak our Aboriginal language, the Gumbaynggirr language back in those days. Otherwise, it was a no-no. Or we'd be taken away to the homes, like Kinchela Boys' Home and Cootamundra Girls' Home, or the Raskar Catholic Detention Centre at Almara. So we weren't allowed to talk our language, and we had to do as we were told. And we only went from kindergarten or year 1 through to year 3 or 4, then we had to leave school and we'd go out to work. They used to send us out. I used to work with all my uncles. They used to do a contract with the brushhook. And when I went out and worked with them, the first couple of days I was with them, all my hands were bleeding. And they said, no, you got to get used to that. But they didn't pay me any money for those first days that I was working. They only paid Dad and all my uncles. They was getting £5 a week. £1 a day. So that last us until we got the next contract. And that was normally for old Sammy Raymond at the Raymond Brothers, on the 50 acres that they had out Buckham-Dinny Road. We used to do all the brushing and cleaning up for all the property owners out around Bowraville for not much money, like maybe $1, $2 a day, and maybe mainly $1 a day, £5 a week. But you had to do it, and that was how we survived. But I didn't like to go out and work under those hard conditions, but we didn't have a choice. We had to go because we didn't have any money for food, and the only thing we was getting was rations from the police station, and you had to go and sign for that, and that was only for flour and sugar and tea leaf and some vegetables, and that wasn't very much to last you all the week, you know. So we had to work, and the first week that I got paid, I was doing gardening for one family in town, and they gave me $1 a day. So I worked for 5 days weeding their garden and doing the lawn mowing, and I got 5 shillings for that week. Cleaning their garden and mowing the lawn. I learned from my uncles that we had to learn to work to survive, and we had to take orders from the landowners and do what they wanted us to do as far as brushing and clearing the land for them. But then I got a job on a dairy farm with a wonderful gentleman called the Andrews family, Albie Andrews and his wife, and they was up Buckham-Dinny, and I spent a lot of time out there working on the dairy farm. That was 365 days a year. You don't get a spell with the cows because they don't know about Christmas holidays. So we used to, I stayed out there. They were very lovely people. They were. They gave me a room in their house, and I used to get up at 3 o'clock, 3 in the morning. I'd get up and go and get the cows and bring them in and milk them. I was milking a herd of cows. I think there was about 100 cows on the property, and we was lucky we had the milking bales, and they showed me how to operate all that. But in the flood time, we couldn't get across the river because we was on the wrong side, so we had to send the milk cans across on a trolley, pull them across with on the wire rope across to the other side. Well, that was a lot of the good memories was when I was with those people, and they showed me how they lived. And I was sleeping on a good bed. I wasn't in an old shack. I was in a bedroom with electricity power on. But it was good, and I used to sit at the table and I had good meals, but not like at home where we was living in a shack and you had to make a fire on the ground and boil a billy can. It was a lot of changes was taking place within me, within myself, and for work and that, you know. Well, where we lived at the racecourse was a big mob, but my dad was the grandson of, his father was Baba Dick, and Baba Dick was the son of James, who come from Never Never country. That was my great-grandfather, who was an initiated man, and he had a twin brother, and they were initiated men. His brother was named Frank, and grandfather James' son was Baba Dick, and he was initiated. And then there's come through to my dad, whose name was Laurie. I'm named after Dad, Laurie, and he was also an initiated man. But there's not many around now that was in that era when I was initiated. Also, back in those days. So you know, there's not many that I know Aboriginal men who's initiated now around our Gumbaynggirr country, and which is pretty hard for me to talk about, because I do a lot of Aboriginal cultural work that I try to keep our Aboriginal culture alive. I got to try and keep my Aboriginal culture alive as much as I can, and that's what I do. I do Aboriginal men's camps and boys camps for my Aboriginal community. Today I do talks with TAFE, and anybody who's interested in listening to the Aboriginal cultural prospect of the Gumbaynggirr people, where once you come into my country, then it's you walking on my land. And I'm also, when I say walking on my land, you're walking on the footsteps of my great-grandparents and my clan people who walked this land before us. So therefore I follow in their footsteps as an initiated Aboriginal man for my family. Because, you know, there's not many Aboriginal people around now who has that initiation part of their lives. It wasn't a normal thing, or it was normal back in those days for the Aboriginal communities to carry out these initiations, because it was important to keep our culture alive. And there wasn't just me on my own. There was actually a group of men that went through. They went through in groups. They were chosen people that went through the initiation. And it wasn't easy and simple like, you know, going to high school and passing your exams. This is physical things you had to do out in the bush, and it was hands-on, where you was getting knowledge and experience for your social future as a man. And it's pretty hard to explain. I could go into it in more detail, but it's because it's secret men's business, then that side of it needs to be kept in that way. Aboriginal men will find that part of their lives interesting, because the only way you'll be able to experience that is if you become part of the initiation ceremony. Because of the ceremonies that I've been through, my family, I've got 3 girls and 1 boy, and my son's name is Bob, who hasn't been through the initiation ceremony yet, but he has all the knowledge that I've passed down to him. That was possible for me to do that. And I have, besides my son, I have 5 grandsons and 2 great-grandsons. And hopefully in the future my son Bob would be able to create that space for them to be taken through ceremony in one stage of their lives. It really is important for me to have my descendants initiated, because of that's part of who I am and who we are as an Aboriginal people. And we need to keep our culture alive within ourselves. As long as we're alive, we need to carry on our culture, otherwise it creates loss of culture, and we create genocide within our own tribal area. So we need to keep alive as much history and culture as we can, and that's what I do as a Gumbaynggirr Aboriginal man. I think it is important for an Aboriginal man to become initiated, because you gain more respect for yourself as a man, as a male in your clan group or your family group or your kinship group, and therefore you're continuing the kinship law that was put into place with ceremony as far as Aboriginal communities are concerned, and the Aboriginal Gumbaynggirr community is the one I'm worried about, because I'm a Gumbaynggirr because of my where I was born in Bellingen, and I'm in the southern end of the Gumbaynggirr tribal area, and my mother's mother is a Bunjalung, because my grandfather married here from the Bunjalung area. He's a Gumbaynggirr man, and my father's mother is a Jungati woman who comes from south of the Gumbaynggirr country, and because of the blood that runs through my veins today is part of both my grandmothers and my grandfathers and my great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers, is the same bloodline that runs in through my veins today, and therefore it makes me proud to say that I share those bloodlines with them, and that makes me a Gumbaynggirr Jungati Bunjalung Gumbaynggirr Jungati Nigger. And Nigger I mean black man, initiated black man with those bloodlines. And those bloodlines in my family is more important for me to pass that information on to my children or my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, because we need to keep that culture alive. If we don't keep that culture alive, then we losing track of who we are and where we belong and where we come from and what part of the land we belong to. There is a few initiated men. I'm not the only one in the Gumbaynggirr country who's initiated. There is a few other men around who's initiated. The numbers is not very large, but there is numbers around that's sufficient to carry on our hope of survival with Aboriginal culture in the Gumbaynggirr country. So we still have gatherings of men. Aboriginal culture is important to me because in 2010 now, I was approached this morning by a young man in Bellingen who's actually going on camp. He's going to a sacred place where he's going to camp with another group of people. And I said, when you go there, I told him, when you go there, I said, be careful how you behave when you go there, because actually you have to be initiated before you attend this place or go to this place. So he was very interested in what I had to tell him, because he was interested in learning more about his culture. And he's only a young man. He's about 16 years old now. Today I spoke to him in the street earlier this morning, and I gave him the information that he needed to protect himself and make sure he has a good time where he's going. And just to, when that young fellow approached me this morning and mentioned that, and I told him he was going to a place where it was a very powerful place, and he needed to be careful when he got out there, and I gave him information or told him what he needed to do to protect himself, because since colonisation there's been a lot of disturbance of Aboriginal cultural or sacred sites, or ceremonial sites, if you like to call them that, sacred sites, and since that colonisation there's a lot of sites that's been destroyed, but a lot of the energy that's around those places are still in place, because what our Aboriginal elders or forefathers put into place and put into those places, the energy that they put into those places are still available today. You need to know how to access that information to revive those sites and the energy within those sites. And there's only certain people, Aboriginal people, that can do that today. But it's a lot of that sort of stuff is still available to Aboriginal youth today, or Aboriginal community or people. If they think that they've lost it, they haven't. If they need information on how to gain that, then they need to come and talk to me about it. If I can't put you in the right direction or to satisfy you, then I could put you in touch with male or female people, initiated people, who can clarify the information that I pass on to you as an Aboriginal person. This information is also available to European people they have to have certain gifts to be able to receive this information about revival of Aboriginal sites or Aboriginal places. We need, these people have to be gifted in those areas to make that possible. And it's possible for European people to do that, because back in the old days there's a lot of Aboriginal people who were half-castes, and they were initiated. There was a European man in Bowraville who was initiated, and he learnt the rituals, and he learnt the language and the songs of the elders in the community, and they accepted him as a knowledge holder in the community. And he's now passed on, but that information that he has, he's put it on record for his family to understand, a better understanding of Aboriginal culture.